Hi folks, my name is Loki Meyburg. I'm one of the platform PMs here at Microsoft Teams. I'm really excited today to be talking to you about some of the new features that have been coming to the SharePoint Framework integration in Teams. So before we get into the thick of it, I thought I'd quickly give a brief introduction on what the SharePoint Framework actually is for those of you who might be unfamiliar with it. The SharePoint Framework is a developer toolkit that provides full support for modern client-side SharePoint development, easy integration with SharePoint data, and it supports a bunch of open source tooling. With the SharePoint Framework, you can use modern web technologies that you're familiar with and the tools in your preferred development environment to build productive experiences that are responsive, and they're going to be mobile ready from day one. Another key advantage is that developers can leverage all of SharePoint's capabilities. That includes SharePoint lists, files, security, CDNs, and integration with Microsoft Graph and Azure Active Directory secured APIs to deliver a full end-to-end application for their organizations. So this in turn helps reduce operational costs and it minimizes the deployment complexity. In short, if you're thinking about building an app as an enterprise or office developer, then the SharePoint Framework is the preferred way to do it because it's free and extremely powerful because it takes care of so much of the plumbing for you. Since we've already released support for the SharePoint Framework in Teams earlier in this year, I thought I'd give a quick demo of the existing functionality you can see today. So in this demo, I've already created a simple Hello World application on my desktop computer. What I want to show you next is how to upload it to SharePoint and then to make it available in Teams. So all you have to do is drag and drop the SharePoint package to the app catalog, which can be found in the SharePoint admin settings. Next, once it's uploaded, make sure to make the application available to everyone in the organization. Next, let's go check it out and see the sample SharePoint app that we just created. Let me just quickly refresh the page to make sure that it's available. And here you go. Some of you might already be familiar with this. Just finding the application now. There you go. There's the simple Hello World application that I've created. So let's go back to our app catalog that we were just on, and let's sync this application with the Teams store. So let's just go back, find the application, click on Files, find the Sync to Teams button, click that one, wait a few seconds, and there you go. It's successfully synced with Teams. So let's go over to Teams and check it out. Just need to refresh my Teams application and make our app available in our company's line of business application store. And there we go. There it is. Click on that. Just add it to the team. Just find my channel. And it's just going to take a few seconds to load and set things up over on the SharePoint side of things. And another second. And there you go. Click Next, click Save, sorry. And there you go. You should be seeing your application running inside of Teams and it's hosted over at SharePoint. So that's the simple Hello World application, and all of this functionality is available today. So next, let's look at some of the common needs of the different people involved in these SharePoint applications, starting with the end user. So the end user should be able to use their tools regardless of which collaboration software they're using. Since every team in Microsoft Teams is backed by an underlying SharePoint site, it becomes more and more important to the end user that their workflow tools are able to bridge seamlessly between one and another. So for example, when an end user uses the Files tab in Microsoft Teams, they're actually interacting with the files that are stored in the underlying SharePoint site. And they're doing all of this without knowing the difference between one or the other. So the same experience should be afforded to the end user for SharePoint Framework applications. In short, the user should be able to use the same app across multiple Office products. So speaking of line of business applications, the IT administrator, generally speaking, they wish to reduce the number of places and ways to manage and deploy their solution to their end users or internal employees. So one of the challenges that big IT organizations face is getting approval to deploy and run new internal applications. And something that the SharePoint Framework does quite well is that it runs on SharePoint for free. So that makes it much easier to spin up and manage an application in what is usually an already IT-approved secure environment, such as SharePoint. So in an enterprise environment, it can always be tricky to get approval to host a new app. You need to get approval for the server costs, and you have to make sure that the data is secure. SharePoint handles all of that for you. So as a developer, and especially as a developer who considers themselves as a Microsoft developer, you want to code up your solution once and have it work across multiple Office products and workloads. One of the great things about SharePoint and Teams is that they're both backed by a modern group and are accessible via the graph. So the developer concepts are very much aligned between the two products. If you're an Office 365 developer, then you want to feel at home regardless of which Microsoft product you're building an app or extension for. So what does this mean for SharePoint and Teams? Let's take a look at how SharePoint Framework and Teams can work seamlessly together. So, on the left side, you can see a fairly complex lead management SharePoint application, which is exposed inside of Teams. And I'll show you a demo of this application in a few seconds. So tabs are automatically hosted and executed in the context of SharePoint. Yet they're also made aware of the fact that they are running inside of Teams. So for example, you can get the channel name or the theme of the Teams tab you're running inside of and use that information to change or customize the look and feel of your SharePoint Framework web part. Let's talk about hosting, because that's an important one. Hosting a web part in SharePoint to be used in Teams does not cost you anything extra. In addition, SharePoint will host your application on their battle-tested global CDN. IT administrators can rest easy knowing that any application can be managed in one location through SharePoint, making it much, much easier to maintain. Finally, you can take advantage of all the SharePoint Framework capabilities in your Teams tab, with the use of SharePoint lists for storing information, graph, and more. You can create some really powerful end-to-end solutions. So, on to the next slide. Let's talk about personal apps in Teams. So something we're very proud to announce is that SharePoint Framework web parts are now supported as personal apps in Teams. Personal apps are dedicated standalone experiences, and they provide a much larger canvas for your SPFx tab. This makes it a great way to showcase your entire SPFx app to your users and makes it easier to get work done. They're also pinnable, and what we mean by that is that an IT administrator can define which apps they'd like to pin for their users. If you have a dedicated line of business application that you only want to provide to, say, your first-line workers or to teachers, we let IT admins pre-pin them for groups in our Office admin portal. I'm going to just redo this whole thing. So something we're proud to announce is that SharePoint Framework web parts are now supported as personal apps in Teams. Personal apps are dedicated, standalone experiences, and they provide a much larger canvas for your SPFx tabs. This makes it a great way to showcase your entire SPFx app to your users, and it makes it easier to get work done. They're also pinnable, and what we mean by that is that an IT admin can define which apps they'd like to pin for their users. If you have a dedicated line of business application that you only want to provide to, say, first-line workers or to teachers, we let admins pre-pin them for groups in our Office admin portal. Users also have the ability to pin their own favorite apps to the sidebar. And finally, personal apps work without needing to use the app in a group or channel setting. And this makes it much easier to provide a space for applications that don't really make sense in a group setting, such as expense reporting tools or intranet portals. These don't make sense in a group setting, but are great candidates for personal apps. Personal apps are also a great way to surface all the tabs you have across multiple channels so that you aggregate tabs for your users in one place in Teams. This makes it easier for users to see an overview of all of their tabs. So next, I want to show you a demo of this functionality and what it looks like to use these apps in Teams and how you can pin them for easy access. So back to our SharePoint page, I've created and uploaded the leads management application I spoke about earlier. Here I'm just going to quickly add it to SharePoint so you can see what it looks like. Great, there you see what it looks like pinned in a SharePoint page. So next, let's go over to Teams and pin this app to a channel just so we can see what it looks like inside of Teams. Find leads, wait a second, and save. There you go, and there, you can finally see it. So one of the things you quickly notice is that the app looks and feels quite constrained in the limited space made available to it in the channel. So let's take a look at what this app would look like as a personal app in Teams. You can access all of your personal apps in the apps icon on the left-hand side of Teams. Here I've found our leads application. Notice that the application has a much bigger dedicated canvas for the experience, and also notice that the app icon is shown on the left-hand rail. A user can also pin that app to their sidebar if they wish. So last but certainly not least, personal apps, as well as channel tabs, are mobile ready. So we expect to release mobile support for Teams tabs soon, and with it, you'll get a dedicated app tray on mobile so that all your apps are just one tap away. We imagine this being a great feature for first-line workers who are often on the go managing a retail store, stocking shelves, or doing field reports. This means your users can use your SPFx app on the go right from within Teams. And that's it, folks. Thanks for making it this far. Before I go, I'd like to quickly talk about some resources to get you started. So if you want to get started right away and you want to start building your first web part for Teams, I recommend the first link. Go to aka.ms/spfx-teams. It will take you through everything you need to get started, and it'll also has a really useful tutorial video. It will basically show you how to do what I did earlier in the presentation with my Hello World app. Next, I highly recommend the SPFx-training link, as it was just recently updated with a lot of great new content to get you started and familiarized with SharePoint development. If you want to try out that leads management application that I showed earlier, you can find it by visiting the SharePoint GitHub page. There's a project called sp-dev-solutions, and it has a huge collection of solutions that you can check out. That's it. I hope you kick the tires with SharePoint Framework and Teams.